Tom Hanks delivers in another Robinson Crusoe-like movie. This one's the science fiction post-apocalyptic movie, Finch. Is this movie any good? Will you like it? Let me help you with those questions coming up after this. Finch debuts November 5th, 2021 on Apple TV, starring Tom Hanks, as I said, and he is in a post-apocalyptic scenario. The last man on Earth, the lone survivor. You've seen 100 movies like this, perhaps. And he's also an inventor, and in this movie, he's got one robot, doesn't speak. It's an R2-D2-like thing that moves around on the ground, close to the ground. And then he's creating another robot, sort of inventor of a conscious robot, who is his sidekick and his erstwhile, say, in a comedic duo, the funny guy versus the straight guy with Tom Hanks. The movie opens, in fact, with Tom Hanks' character scavenging in a grocery store, and there's dust everywhere. He's wearing a suit, and it looks a lot like some of the games I've played, like Fallout, for example, where you have a trusty dog and you're scavenging in a grocery store. In fact, this movie reminds me, in the first 6 minutes, not just of Fallout, but of Wall-E, and you'll see why very quickly. The quotations, in fact, all over this movie from pretty much every post-apocalyptic movie and story you can think of. Anyone who's familiar with this territory like I am knows, okay, last man on Earth, only one human left, supposedly, or it looks like. You're in a Robinson Crusoe story in which the individual scavenging for stuff tries to build his own castle or fortress, his own sort of paradise amongst ruin. That's exactly what's going on here, and you have Tom Hanks being an inventor of a robot that's going to talk to him. And the mission of this robot is interesting. It's not just to help Hanks or be a servant. It's also to take care of his dog. This dog is one of the cutest movie dogs I've seen in a long time. It's very affecting, and the relationship between the Hanks character and the dog is one of the main features of this movie. I must admit, this movie, sentimentality really struck me. To some people, it will feel ooey gooey. It will almost be TV movie-ish. I'm a sucker for this sort of thing. Post-apocalyptic and man and dog relationship. Oh man, I love this kind of stuff. So I'm going to overrate this movie probably. Now, of course, in any post-apocalyptic scenario, you've got to get the characters moving usually. You can't stay in one place. So that's exactly what happens with this single individual, Hanks, plus his two robots and his dog. They're going to have to get out of middle America. This story begins in St. Louis, and they're going to have to go where? I won't tell you, but it's basically the most classic science fiction destination I could probably think of, and you could probably guess. Especially given that Apple is putting this movie out, where do you think they're headed? There are a couple of other catches to this movie, and I won't spoil them for you. But this is a classic buddy road trip story, as it will turn out, plus a classic American wasteland story. And it will remind you, as I said, of perhaps 100 other stories. It said of Casablanca that it's a dance of 1,000 cliches, and that's what makes the movie so good, celebrating all the cliches. This movie is definitely the dance of 1,000 science fiction cliches. It's nowhere near as good as Casablanca, not even close. But I did find some delight in that. Sometimes I'm put off by that sort of thing. It's too cliched, too many obvious movie moves going on in here. I actually like this movie because it brought everything together, and you can kind of use it as an example of about 50 different ideas you'll find in classic science fiction going all the way back to the beginning of the 20th century. Also, I found this to be perhaps a kid's movie. They do use a couple of four-letter words in here to get it to PG-13 as a rating, but really there's not too much of violence, or there's a couple scary scenarios, but other than that, I'm pretty confident I could let my 7-year-old watch this, along with any other children who might enjoy it, because it's actually pretty interesting. The robot grows over time, the robot that Hanks invents. He's very annoying at first. I didn't like him, and I thought, man, they didn't make this robot very good. But in fact, it's purposeful because this robot's supposed to grow into his role later on. I love the dog, and Hanks is actually pretty good in this. You've seen him in Castaway, as I have, talking to volleyballs on a desert island. This is kind of like that sort of movie where it's a solo Hanks affair. Here, at least the robot talks to him. But basically, he's carrying the movie. And since Tom Hanks is older now, this ends up being like an old man telling stories movie. Hanks is really good at, I mean, I enjoyed it. He's good at storytelling in here. So I actually like this as an older Tom Hanks flick. There's some really good stuff about post-apocalyptic worlds. In fact, the question of rebuilding versus just scavenging comes up. I was really struck by the way that's handled in the movie. And overall, I was struck by what happened in the last 30 minutes and my reaction to it. Now, most of you in this channel are going to come along and probably be annoyed by a lot of things in this movie because it looks like the same old stuff. It's not that well directed overall. The script, as I said, it's a dance of a thousand cliches. But to me, when I got to the end, my heart was just singing. And I never cry in movies. I am a movie stoic. I cannot be moved. This movie had me shed one tear. So that's very unusual, like it happens once every 5 years. I do not know why I was affected. It could be just me. I think I might be highly biased here. But my heart said this is a 5-star movie. My head says it's like 1 to 2 stars. If I'm going to analyze it, there's a lot of problems with it, but I was tugged in the right directions here, so I'm going to give it 3 stars. I would not rush out to get an Apple TV subscription for this movie, but if you have one, this is not a bad movie to watch on the weekend and enjoy some entertainment. What do you think of Finch? Let us know in the comments, and please subscribe to this channel for more great content. Thank you. Have a great day. This is one of the saddest apocalypses of post-apocalyptic movies I can recall for various reasons. I won't tell you why, but there is a sadness in the backdrop of this, so they try to make it pretty lighthearted overall. Because if they push the sadness and depression, despair, the loneliness and anxiety, the alienation bits, man, this movie felt way too heavy, or it would just feel heavy. So I think that's maybe a tonal problem, that this is sometimes too lighthearted given the world here. Then again, it makes it more friendly and open to basically anybody who could watch it. It's not going to be a Mad Max or Cormac McCarthy's The Road type movie, even though it draws a lot of inspiration from those.